What's up, guys? Readiness Reviews here with you again, and we're back at it with another military surplus firearm unboxing. It seems that I just can't get enough pain because I have once again gone back to the well and made an order from Royal Tiger Imports. This box contains a C-grade No.1 Mark III Lee-Enfield, but this particular rifle is one of the cheapest firearms RTI offers, period, because it was sporterized in Ethiopia. These C-grade Enfields are coming in under $200, and for that kind of price, I am willing to roll the dice. Before we get this rifle opened up, I want to remind you guys to give this video a thumbs up if you like seeing this military surplus-centric firearms content here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future content, and let me know down in the comments whether or not you would risk your money on a C-grade RTI milsurp. Now let's see what Royal Tiger sent us. I basically bought this rifle out of morbid curiosity. We all know that C-grades from RTI are super sketch. As usual, FedEx beat the box up a little bit. RTI has two different SKUs of their C-grade No.1 Enfields. They have their military correct version, which we've reviewed here on the channel previously. I'll link that video right here if you want to see that one. And then we have the one that we're looking at today, which was sporterized in Ethiopia. So these have been cut down to resemble more of a traditional sporter style rifle. We have some packing peanuts in there, an internal cardboard sleeve protecting the rifle along with some bubble wrap. I can tell straight away that this is substantially lighter weight than your standard No.1 Enfield. Typically, I am very anti-sporterized rifle, but since these rifles were supposedly sporterized for military service, I suppose it makes them a little less gross. They put a ton of bubble wrap on this rifle. Well, there it is, No.1 Enfield. And you can see right away there that we are missing the majority of the front end of the rifle. On a No.1 Enfield, your wood runs all the way to the end of the rifle here on both the top and the bottom, and there's supposed to be a metal nose cap. At some point in this particular rifle's past, the stock here was cut back to just past our barrel band. I know you guys are already getting mad about me buying a sporterized rifle. There was reason to my madness though. I very recently unboxed 5 drill purpose rifles that I picked up from Century Arms, and while those DP rifles don't function themselves, they do have a plethora of parts that would allow me to take a sporterized rifle like this No.1 and put it back in military configuration. Now that sounds good and all, but all those plans will crash and burn if the rifle that we received from Royal Tiger Imports is not worth restoring in the first place. Let's open this bolt up. Pull back on that wasn't too difficult, but man, is the inside of this action dirty and rusty even. The example that we received is a 1936 dated, BSA made, No.1 Mark III Star. It's pretty funny they sent me a 1930s dated rifle because in the notes on my RTI order, I did request a 1930s date since I don't have one in my collection thus far. Before we remove this bolt completely, let's give it a basic function check here. So the action did cock on close. Squeeze that trigger here, and the sear falls, so it passes that very basic function check. The bolt head does not seem to be locking in to the spring-loaded retainer clip in the receiver. We do have a complete bolt though, so bolt head, we have our extractor with the extractor spring, cocking piece, and if we unscrew this bolt head, we can spot the end of the firing pin there. The previous C-grade No.1 that I got from RTI had a terribly deformed bolt head. Believe it or not, this one actually seems to be in really nice shape. On first inspection, I have no reason to think that this wouldn't be completely functional. This rifle is unfortunately missing its magazine. RTI did include that in their listing for it. We have our rear handguard and a small portion of the front handguard. Barrel band with sling loop is included. We have our rear sight here, but it is stuck at 600 yards. Can't move that at all. We have a full complete safety assembly, action screw, trigger guard screw. We already saw that it passed the basic function check, so everything with the trigger works. This rifle has the cross screw going through the forestock. That particular screw is referred to as an Ishi bolt, which is indicative of Indian service for an Enfield. Ishi is short for Ishapore, the Ishapore rifle factory in India. They installed these cross bolts to supposedly increase the strength of the forestock. Our buttstock is complete with butt plate, sling loop, stock disc. Those markings do not look like English though. And although it has a few cracks running through it. It is attached securely and seems pretty solid. The finish on the receiver here actually doesn't look too bad. I've seen much, much worse. We do have some pitting here though, so at some point this was rusted. There's our very small import marks from Inner Ordnance. Those don't look too bad actually. I'm thinking that this rifle most likely underwent some amount of wire wheeling in Ethiopia because parts of the finish, like the inside of the trigger guard here, are rusty, where other parts are pretty polished, like where our stampings are here. Next to all those polished portions, you can see these grooves in the wood. These sort of vertical striations are very evident right here. We can see them alongside the receiver here. They're very evident along the sight wings and even near the polished portion of this barrel band. So somewhere, someone tried to pretty these rifles up a little bit in the past. This particular rifle has a very interesting marking here on the receiver and the barrel that looks a lot like an Iraqi military service acceptance stamp. I'm far from an expert on that matter though, so if you know what that marking is, let me know down in the comments. So on initial glance, although we have a Sporterized rifle, it doesn't seem to be in too terribly bad shape, and all the important components besides the magazine are included. What's really going to be the determining factor on whether or not this rifle is worth restoring though, is going to be the condition of the bore. So far I've run into very poor bores on No.1 Enfields from Royal Tiger Imports, but I'm hoping this one is an exception. I have a PPU 303 British round here, and we'll start out with just a very simple muzzle test. Now that looks really good actually. There is a lot of copper showing, substantially more than what I encountered with my other No.1 Enfields from RTI. That's a really good sign. The bore itself, however, is ultra dark and pitted. The rifling is visible, but it is super dirty in there. So we won't know exactly how it looks until cleaning, shooting, and then cleaning again. I found this to be sort of an interesting imprint in the stock. That is very clearly the imprint of a No.1 Enfield safety. So this portion of another rifle was pressed against this rifle hard enough to go that deep into the wood. I'm sure that's what a lot of these little marks on both sides of the rifle are. I'm planning to completely replace the wood on this rifle if it turns out to be a decent enough shooter. I'm still curious as to whether or not the wood is in shooting condition as is though. So let's get a look under the wood line at what we have. Take this barrel band off first. The rust and dirt is just seeping out around the edges of the screw. They took the time to wire wheel these rifles, but they couldn't be bothered to take them down and properly clean them. That barrel band is pretty darn rusty on the underside. There's our tiny little piece of front handguard, and as expected, this rifle is completely disgusting under the wood. Looks to be both rusty and moldy. Pull our rear guard here. Oh boy. Look at all that crap. Caked on dirt and grime. There's little bits of plant matter and hairs. At least I haven't seen bugs in this one yet. This middle screw here is a tight one, but there it is with included spring. Now our main action screw. It was actually very easy to turn. It's pretty rusty and the screw head is visibly worn but serviceable. And now we got to tackle that tiny trigger guard screw. It was barely in there at all. Trigger guard assembly pops right out. It is lined with a thick layer of corrosion. At this point, this forestock should usually just come straight off, but this one's actually stuck on there really good. I think I might have to give it a couple taps with the mount. That should be enough to get it off of there. Yeah, man, that was really on there. As that came out, it looks like a little piece of the stock chipped out along with it. That piece should go in right there, but it was so tightly wedged in the receiver that it broke upon removing the stock. Man, this stock is disgusting. It is full of mold, rust, dirt, all the way down the length. There's some white mold there. Really awful condition. As far as the backside goes here, it has its strengthening bar, but the wood is split on the underside and the top side there. Same story in the middle here, near where our action screw goes. That piece of wood is split all the way in two. We can tell that on both sides there. So what little bit of forestock we have left for this rifle is pretty chewed up. There's an imprint on the back here where the stock screw was tightened so vigorously that it sort of crushed in the little strengthening bar. We can see the little square tip of our stock screw popping out there. I figure that's probably the reason that forestock was so difficult to remove. Now, when dealing with No.1 Enfields, older Enfields, especially World War I or older models, have a stock bolt that extend past the receiver on the inside of the rifle. Post-World War I rifles are not supposed to have that though, and since this rifle had the updated Strengthening back, I figured it would have a normal stock bolt, but I believe someone has taken an older World War I stock bolt and fit it in this rifle, causing these issues that we've encountered. Look how gross the inside of this is. It is just caked with all manner of dirt, rust, and mold, just like the stock was. This thing is ugly as all get out. Even with as disgusting as this thing is, I mean, just look at my hands here. All of this should clean up just fine. It's going to take a lot of work to do so, though. If you're thinking about purchasing one of these Sporterized C-grade Enfields from RTI in hopes of restoring it, this is basically what you're buying. The barreled action. These rifles are coming in right at $200, and to be completely honest, $200 is a little bit on the high end for what you should expect to pay for a #1 Mark III Lee-Enfield barreled action. So although these rifles are cheap, in the grand scheme of things, they might not be the best option if you're looking for a restoration project. Because although you are getting basically all the major parts that you would need to restore a #1 Enfield, the condition of said parts throughout the rifle might be a little too rough for it to be worth the effort. On the other hand though, I've invested $200 in this rifle. I have a pile of DP Enfields sitting around that I paid about $50 a piece for. And so if I can end up with a good, shootable, military configuration #1 Enfield for $250, that would end up being a fantastic deal. It just all comes down to the individual example that you receive, and with Royal Tiger Imports, all bets are off. It is complete chance. And the only person that can decide whether or not it's worth it to take on that risk is you. So maybe it is worth it to me to spend $200 on this C-grade rifle, but it's most certainly not that way for everyone. It's very important for you to know what you're getting into if you're considering one of these. And even if you legitimately are just in the market for a Sporterized #1 Enfield, take note that these rifles are going to need a lot of work before they're in service ready condition. I will revisit this rifle in the near future, get it out to the range to see how it shoots, and I'll report back. If it does turn out to be a decent shooter, I do plan on doing a full restoration of this rifle, and I will most certainly bring you guys along for the journey. So now you've seen Royal Tiger Imports Sporterized C-grade #1 Enfield. If you're curious what kind of condition you can expect from their non-Sporterized version of the rifle though, I have a complete video on that rifle, and I will link that right up here for you so you can check it out. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. That helps us out with the algorithm and getting it distributed out to other viewers. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future military surplus firearms content. And leave me a comment letting me know whether or not you guys think a rifle like this is worth $200. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I will catch you in the next video. See you then. Peace.